Welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
And this week, we're going to the Mojave Wasteland.
Yes, finally.
Finally.
I don't know how we made it this far without talking extensively about New Vegas.
Well, I can tell you, it's because I hadn't played New Vegas. Pretty easy answer to that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. Would have been a pretty boring episode. It would have been me asking probing questions.
I would have had a blast, though. That would have been right up my alley.
Ben interviews Curt about Curt's favorite game.
Yeah,
that's actually not a bad idea.
That's a good point, too, though, is that I felt a lot of pressure from this because I've stated, on podcasts, that this is my favorite game of all time. So there's a lot of pressure, it feels like, for me to, articulate why I like it so much. But yeah, we're going to do that today. We'll
be getting to discussion of the masterpiece.
Yep. Don't be afraid to hit that pause button, get some food, go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. We're going to be here all night.
But first.
Yes.
Let's do our check-ins.
Let's do those check-ins.
What have you been up to, Curtis?
So I actually have not played New Vegas since we decided to do the episode. I thought about, getting into it and, starting a new file or something, and I was like, that's just... I've literally played, 1,000 hours of this game. I'll be overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'll talk about too much if I play it. So, but I kind of wanted to get into that Bethesda mindset. I don't know if that even makes any sense. But so I started playing quite a bit of Skyrim. A couple right after the last episode, which is cool. I don't really have much to say about it, but I'm playing it a lot. I'm doing an Argonian character, which I've never done before.
You went Argonian.
I did.
Nice. I was in the room when you were deliberating about what you wanted to do.
And that's about it for that. Other than that, I have found a new YouTube channel that I've been super into. It's always really awesome when you find a new channel with lots of good content because it's oh man, we're gonna binge. So I found I don't do speed runs of any games. It's just not anything that's ever interested me. But there's a YouTube user who goes by Summoning Salt. I don't know if that's a reference to something.
I don't know.
But he does a series called World Record Progression where he'll pick a game and talk about the history of speedrunning of that game and talk about different speedrunners that beat it at different times, and as time went on, different strategies that were developed to help cut time down, and talk about people apparently will go back and forth for 6 months, shaving a second off each other's time to keep having world records change hands, it's kind of exciting in a weird way, even though speedrunning is not anything that really ever interests me.
I've watched a lot of speedruns.
I've never watched any, and I've never really done any. Anytime
Awesome Games Done Quick comes out, the summer or the winter editions, I'll usually keep an eye out for what were the really cool speedruns this year. And the video game Braid has a built-in speedrun option. So I actually did do a speedrun of Braid, not any kind of world record or anything, but that feeling of trying to shave a couple seconds off of a game that, even a game like Braid that is not typically thought of as being speed-centric, it's a puzzle game, Yeah. You end up having to think about puzzles in very different ways. So I really enjoyed that experience.
That's something that is... One of the reasons I know I couldn't do it is because as I'm learning about it, you'll see someone playing a game, doing a speed run, and then you don't even know what happened or what went wrong, and then they're just fuck, and they shut it off. It's just such a quick little mistake can totally fuck your run up, and they do long. I watched a 20-minute episode today about a Super Mario 64 120 star run, and it's the world record on that is 136 minutes.
Wow.
So it's it takes a while. So if you get halfway done or towards the end and you fuck something up, you're just they can't even handle that stress.
Yeah.
The only other thing I've been up to was I went on my honeymoon the other day, which boring, who cares? But I found a cool music store.
I'm back on track. There we go.
In North Conway, where we went, and I went on a pretty serious music binge. It was a very really cheap, honestly, used record store, and they had some CDs and cassette tapes too. So I ended up buying like 2 AC/DC vinyl records and a Job for a Cowboy vinyl record, an Aussie record, and then I bought some CDs. I think I bought Typo Negative, Cannibal Corpse, Napalm Death, and Black Sabbath. So I bought it like...
Good trip for metal.
Yeah, I bought a Trap Them record as well. I bought a lot of fucking music. It was pretty bad.
Was it called Bliss Fucker?
Yes, it was.
I just found a piece of paper. I found some evidence.
Oh, is that my digital code paper?
It's your digital code. It's sitting here on the speaker right next to me. Yeah.
The classic 2014 album, Bliss Fucker by Trap Them. I love metal.
Nice.
It's so... it's the only time you get to do that. That's like the other... That Job for a Cowboy thing I bought is live. So there's lots of like, hey, thanks everybody. The song is called Unfurling a Darkened Gospel. Like, and then they're just like blistering metal. And you're like, oh, okay, here we go.
Cool.
That's it for me though. What have you been up to?
Mostly playing Fallout New Vegas because unlike you, I had not played it before.
You know, I'm weirdly jealous. All that cool shit that I've just been talking about. And I'm like, I kind of wish I had played New Vegas for 2 weeks.
It was pretty sick. But other than New Vegas, I watched a couple movies. I watched the movie Whale Rider that came out in 2003 out of New Zealand. It's a fantastic kind of coming-of-age story about a young girl dealing with the traditions of her community, and some of the misogynist implications of those traditions as well, and everybody kind of coming to terms with each other. Great movie. The thing that I really loved about this movie was, well, I think I might have gotten into this before, but I like movies that are paced kind of slow. Yeah. Like movies that are paced kind of like plays, where you're not going to get really short scenes because you have to set up and take down all kinds of shit. So you're going to get really long, drawn-out scenes with lots of silence. That's the kind of thing that I'm into. And Whale Rider, let me tell you, very slow-paced, very deliberate. You're really paying attention to the characters and really getting to know these people. On the opposite end of that spectrum is another movie that I saw called The Dark Tower.
Yes.
Starring Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. Based on the Stephen King book series, The Dark Tower. And those books were super important to me when I was a teenager, so I was excited and felt kind of trepidatious about seeing the movie. And let me tell you, that's a really bad movie. The movie's very, very bad. It feels like every single scene had the beginning and end chopped off of it. So, like, no setup, no takedown for any scene. It's just the most important things that happened in this scene. We got to get this fucking thing down to 90 minutes and change the ending because test audiences didn't like it. Yeah, some people might find something to enjoy in The Dark Tower, but it's probably going to be laughing at the movie.
Why do we still rely on test audiences so much?
And it's because movies got to make money.
Oh,
though in this case, it does not seem to have helped the film's box office numbers. I think it barely is going to pass a profit right now.
Sometimes it's funny when you see like trailers or something that teases a movie, and you don't pick up anything on it, and then after you see the movie and it was good or bad, it can kind of change how you view the trailer. And now that you have said how bad it is, I've seen some trailers for it, like on YouTube advertisements and stuff. And one of the only things I had seen about it was like Stephen King saying, like, I came up with these characters when I was 22. For me, it's really cool to see them on the big screen. And like, that's really the only endorsement you have for this? Like, for me personally, it's cool to see an idea I had 30 years ago on the screen.
Me,
now.
Stephen King, one of the most filmed authors.
So
it's really cool. You know, it's not cooler than like The Green Mile or like The Mist. Or it's not cooler than those, but it's cool in the same way.
It's not cooler than Shawshank Redemption.
Definitely not cooler than Shawshank Redemption. It's maybe about as cool as Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah. Is it cooler than Pet Sematary?
Definitely not. Yeah. No way. Not even close.
I do love me some Maximum Overdrive, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of pretty
severely biased. Though.
There are a lot of pretty good Stephen King movies. Other than those movies, I started watching the television show Riverdale.
Yeah.
Based on the Archie comics.
I gotta check that out, which I did not know until like 5 minutes before this show that we are both big fan of Archie comics.
What a weird connection.
I know.
Because I do not meet that many other people that are into Archie comics, or if they are, they're not willing to talk about it with me.
Yeah.
They don't get my sweet Jughead references.
I was going to say, that Jughead, huh?
That Jughead, he loves hamburgers.
He sure
Curtis.
is hungry all the time.
He is fucking starving. Somebody feed Jughead something.
Get this guy some burgers.
Fuck's sake. Riverdale's great. It's like Archie meets Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Is it on Netflix?
Yeah. That's where I'm watching it.
Speaking of Netflix,
recommended to me by my wife. Guessed it on the last episode. Yeah. Shout outs to Megan.
Woo! Hey Megan. I've been cranking, not so much in the past couple weeks because I've been super busy, but this summer I've been trying to crank through The Office on Netflix because for years I've been trying to finish it and then like fading away from it and then coming back. And I saw this internet article, they'll tell you what's leaving Netflix. Mm-hmm. And I saw a thing that said The Office is leaving Netflix in September. So this summer I was like, oh my god, we got to finish like 3 seasons of this because I'm never going to buy it. And then I just found out, it was either today or yesterday, that that's actually not an accurate thing. So I got time to finish it. I'm on the last season though. There's only like 12 episodes left. Huh. So I got to finish that.
How do you like it?
It's okay. The last season's pretty awful. Even if you like it, the last season is pretty awful. It's very like they're shoving new characters in your face, and like, I keep wanting to say Michael Scott, but what is his
actual
Steve
name?
Carell is not in it. I think he has like a cameo in the last episode or something, but it sucks. But
I'm watching it.
It's a good couple show. Laura and I both like it enough together
you
where
can tolerate it.
We can watch it while we eat dinner and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into New Vegas, we have to make good on our contest from last episode. Last episode, Ben's wife Megan was here, and we talked about 3 essential Tom Waits albums. Since then, I've done a giveaway on my Instagram account for a physical copy of Tom Waits' album Rain Dogs on CD. I got it right here. It's an audio show. Don't know why I felt the need to pull it out.
Looks great, Curtis.
Yep, still shrink wrapped. Didn't order this bad boy online. I'm not just going to order this online and have it shipped to your house. I walked into my local record store, picked out a copy for you, and then I think I threw like a Bull Moose sticker or something. Yeah, I did. I'm not endorsed by Bull Moose. They just gave me a sticker, so I threw one in there for you.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if the person that won lives in Maine or not. But
if they don't, that's going to be pretty cool to have a Bull Moose sticker.
Yeah. So, as I said, the rules of the contest were I would post a picture of our black gold logo with a cover of Rain Dogs, and you just had to tag 2 people to enter the contest, and some people did that, and the winner is Wook of Wall Street.
Wook of Wall Street.
Good for you, Wook.
Congratulations, Wook.
I'll be getting in touch with you to get your address, and I should just mail it to Wook of Wall Street and then have their address underneath it.
Wook of Wall Street, care of whatever the person's name is.
I actually did that once, and it really blew up in my face. I was in a Reddit gift exchange, and I had made a habit of just sending it to the username and then their address, because I think it's cool. You kind of like go by this like net handle.
You've got your identity online.
Yeah, so it's I always thought it was like cool to like get mail and have it have your net name or whatever.
Yeah,
and that worked for me most of the time. And then at one point I had sent it, and the kid lived at a college.
Oh.
And it somehow at the time it got there, it was like summer or something, and they had no way of knowing who it had belonged to. So I kind of screwed a guy on a Reddit gift exchange because I filled his information out wrong.
But, that sucks. Is this your confession?
Yeah, I actually don't do Reddit gift exchanges anymore because I got burned. Someone didn't send me something on the same exchange where I messed up sending something to somebody else.
Wow.
And I was just like, I feel bad, and I'm pissed that I didn't get my thing. So. And
now Reddit's pretty much just neo-Nazis. So,
yeah. I wasn't sure if I should bring up neo-Nazis again or not, because I knew
I'm trying to keep it off the podcast.
Well, if we have time after our 8-hour New Vegas show.
Hey, you know what? neo-Nazis are gonna come up during New Vegas discussion, all right? Because Caesar's Legion.
At the very least, I'm just going to say a disclaimer that we don't want to not talk about neo-Nazis because we don't want to divide our audience. Fuck neo-Nazis.
Fuck neo-Nazis. If you're a neo-Nazi, stop listening.
Go away.
Go away. Go back to Murdoch or whatever. I'll find you there.
We don't need your revenue.
Yeah, we don't need you.
Yeah, so
keep tapping into the fucking
it's cool.
microphone thing.
I don't think it's making a difference. Oh, maybe I'm looking at the little thing.
Yeah, I can hear it in my headphones.
So yeah, that's that contest. Nazis, New Vegas.
New Vegas.
I'm looking at my bullet points. Neo-Nazis contest. Okay.
Covered the neo-Nazis. Contest is all set.
Yeah.
New Vegas.
So I don't know if we're gonna do contests. Like, we're not gonna do them all the time. We'll probably do them once in a while. It was kind of fun. I liked seeing people.
It was a well suited episode for a contest.
We're gonna try some new stuff like that once in a while. And yeah. So how do we want to approach New Vegas?
Well, let's give a basic description of what Fallout is first.
Okay. All right. So can I start this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Fallout is an RPG set in a post-apocalyptic world, in that it's an alternate version of U.S. history. So far we can agree. Just chime in if anything seems not okay.
I'll hit the buzzer.
Basically, in the lore of Fallout, right after or during World War II, Americans discovered nuclear fission, which simultaneously paused popular culture in a 50s era style and launched us forward scientifically by ways of like super intelligent robots, nuclear powered cars, things like that. Anything that kind of we thought would be a possibility in the 50s actually happened.
Exactly. The way that I always like to think of it is that the discovery of like easily available unlimited energy allowed people in the 1950s in the world of Fallout to create the future that they were envisioning at the time. So all that weird, it's like Jetsons shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's that vision of the future.
Yes.
But 50s instead of 70s.
So after that happened, it wasn't good for a little while. I don't remember exactly what happened that causes.
I believe it was a war with China. Like China tries to annex Alaska. This is like deep lore shit about Fallout.
Really nothing to do with
We're giving
Vegas.
like backstory to the Fallout universe. There's a war with China. Nuclear weapons are dropped, like large numbers of nuclear weapons, and the United States is mostly a post-nuclear wasteland. Hence the title Fallout.
A little tidbit of that I actually had noticed recently was, according to the lore, it was 2 straight hours of nuclear bombs dropping, which basically wiped out the whole world, essentially.
Right.
As far as we know, at least America.
Right, at least America. Because what was knocked out was like long-distance communication. You don't have long-distance communication anymore. Would you say that Fallout's vision of the future is an optimistic or pessimistic one?
You know...
Of the post-apocalypse, that is.
What I like about Fallout is that it's post-apocalyptic. I find it hopeful because it takes this horrible thing that happened and you mostly skip over that. And most Fallout games focus on rebuilding in this world that has fallen apart. So I view it optimistically.
I think I agree. The thing that I really love about all the Fallout games, minus Fallout 3, which we can talk about at some point if we want to, is that they're very focused on humanity.
Yeah. On
the inherent humanity, or the classic literary question of like man's inhumanity to man, right? Why do people treat each other so shitty? How do people change over time? What causes people to change over time? These are the kind of things that Fallout is interested in exploring. So yeah, have you played the old Fallout games, Curtis?
I have played 1 and 2 a little bit, and I've played Tactics a little bit, but I've never gotten super into any of them. So for most of those, I believe every Fallout game takes place about 200 years after all the nuclear.
I believe there's about a 100-year range.
Yeah.
So Fallout 1 is the earliest one. That's in like the mid 2100s, which is like 100 years after the bombs fall, I think. We're probably fucking up this timeline so bad.
2077 was when the...
2077 is when the bombs fall. 2180s is when the first game takes place. Second game takes place like 30 years after the first game, I think, ish. And then Fallout New Vegas takes place about 100 years after those. Yeah. In like 2281.
So...
Right. So you have a pretty wide range.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that's, I guess we maybe should have warned about this, is that this is a very rich story, which really adds to it. It can be a little confusing and overwhelming to get into it and learn all this, but you definitely get a lot more out of it than we're trying to save the princess, you know? Like,
it's an incredibly rewarding world to roleplay in.
So that is kind of
maybe my favorite role-playing games.
Probably. It's very dense.
I can't think of anything better, honestly. Like, what is Baldur's... Maybe Planescape Torment. Planescape Torment is probably a better game. Or a better story. But the Fallout series, again, -3, has got to be some of the best, like, fucking make these choices now kind of games.
I have a real problem with 4, which we probably should talk about at some point. But... So that's kind of the lore that the Fallout universe is in. And then as far as New Vegas is concerned, you have your immediate plot with your main character and then kind of the overarching story of the area that is New Vegas. Mm-hmm. So you are the courier. Before the game starts, you come to learn that you were just a courier delivering a special package. You're intercepted by some bandits, and you get shot.
The Great Khans.
Yeah. And you get shot in the head. You wake up in a small town called Good Springs with no recollection.
Yeah, a robot saves you.
Yeah.
A robot comes up
a cowboy robot named Victor.
Not like... And he doesn't look like a cowboy in his body shape. He's like... He's a standard... He's like a boxy security bot.
Yeah.
But his TV screen on his face, which is like a CRT tube screen, has the face of a cartoon cowboy on it. And he talks like a cartoon cowboy. He's amazing.
So, yeah.
And from there, you get to know... Well, you have your job to complete, first off. You're still alive. You still feel like, you need to deliver this package. But you're also getting to know the people of Good Springs, and then by getting enmeshed in their little, like, local struggles, you become enmeshed in the large struggles, the large clash that is happening around the Vegas area, around the Vegas and Colorado River area.
So that big situation, I don't know how best to phrase
the main conflict of the game, let's say. Yeah.
You find out that a few years ago, 6 or 10 years ago, there was a giant battle at the Hoover Dam, because that is a significant source of power, and it's the key to keeping power in New Vegas is through the Hoover Dam.
Right.
And it was the Legion and the NCR.
Let's back up a little bit and just talk about factions for a second.
Okay.
Because that to me is the thing that's really special about New Vegas is the factions. So you have the NCR. Let's start. The NCR is located mainly in California. The NCR has claims to be the continuation of the former United States government.
Yep.
That's their claim to power. And they run a good government in California. But by stretching all the way out to Vegas to try to take and hold the Hoover Dam, they have stretched themselves very thin. So the NCR and Fallout 1 or 2, I can't remember which one, but you interact a lot with the NCR in one of those games. You actually see essentially the founding of the NCR. And the NCR is cool, right? There's a little bit of corruption, but once you stretch them very thin and you no longer have the oversight and people are really stressed out, you get a massive amount of corruption within the NCR in the Vegas area. And they just can't handle it. They just do not have the resources to hold the Hoover Dam. Because who they're up against on the east side of the Colorado River is Caesar's Legion.
Yes.
Right? Now, Caesar is a man who, he's, it's not actually Julius Caesar, but he has modeled his life after Julius Caesar. Kind of like Ozymandias in Watchmen modeled his life after Alexander the Great. Noticed some parallels and then decided to take inspiration from one of the quote-unquote great men of history. So Caesar was this big leader who, conquered a lot of tribes in the plains in the middle of America to the east of the Colorado. And he decided to, once he had conquered all of these tribes, the equivalent of Caesar conquering, the Gallic tribe, the Gallic Wars, I think. I'm not an expert on Roman history, but I think that's analogous.
Well, at the very least, it's reminiscent of the Roman Empire starting to gain traction.
Right. Caesar returns, and he wants to take over the Hoover Dam because his vision for the future of the wasteland is an autocratic, monocultural mass of people who will all follow one leader, as Caesar, and by following that one leader, it will give them the strength to rise up out of the shackles that bind them. I don't know. The wasteland is a really bad place, I think, is something that's also important to say. That's important context for all of this. This is not like happy people trying to work together to make things better out in the Mojave wasteland. It's people who are out for themselves. It's a lot of criminals. It's a lot of drug users, roaming the wasteland, attacking caravans. It is an unsafe place to be. So the essential question of the game is, what's the best way to keep people safe? Or what's the best way to move forward? Do you go with the NCR, who have, noble ambitions, but are ultimately biting off more than they can chew? Or do you go with someone like Caesar and Caesar's Legion, whose methods are violent and cruel? Anyone who does not bend the knee to him, he crucifies them. You see a lot of crucified people in this fucking game.
They're still living.
They're still living. You can go up and look at them and interact with them in some cases, let them down in some cases. It's a brutal regime, but it's not a good. I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. I don't agree with Caesar, but the game's writing makes a really good argument for Caesar.
Yeah, certainly.
You understand where he's coming from.
And that's what's so great about the writing in this game is, now that you have kind of a grasp for those two sides, Caesar's Legion and the NCR had a battle at Hoover Dam, and it was essentially a standstill. And now all of these cultures and groups are just kind of hanging around New Vegas. That's probably...
Oh my god.
Can you all hear that? Yeah. Window open?
You guys like that car alarm?
Yeah. So all these cultures and groups are just kind of hanging out around the Las Vegas area.
You could almost even call them tribes. In fact, a lot of people do call them tribes.
And there's this tension of there's going to be another battle at Hoover Dam, a final battle. And as you get beyond your initial mission of being a courier that has to deliver a package, you realize that you will be the tipping point for whichever tribe or group you think will lead the best future of New Vegas.
It's an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
To be interacting with a story like this. And it's not like a simple pick this side or pick that side, because in addition to Caesar's Legion and the NCR, you have a third main faction of Mr. House, who is the guy that preserved Las Vegas. I guess that's the other thing we should mention, is that the Mojave Wasteland is mostly leveled by nuclear weapons, but for reasons that are revealed in the game, there is a section of the Las Vegas Strip that is essentially untouched. It's still getting power. It's blocked off by walls, and there's a credit check before you can even get in.
Yep.
So there's inside of this outer shell of mostly burning trash cans and scorpions and shit, a really dangerous place. There's this hub of safety, and it feels like a hub of civilization. And the game makes you really think about how that is worth preserving. In what way is that worth preserving? What methods should we use to preserve it? Where the fuck was I going with that? That's...
It just, well, I think you were just saying that it adds to the, there's not just a good choice and a bad choice.
Right, the third one is Mr. House. Mr. House is responsible for the Las Vegas Strip. He does not want the NCR or Caesar's Legion to have control of the dam. So instead of having like a good versus evil, you have a solid triangle where every single side has a good point.
You can even, side with Yes Man, who kind of...
That's actually what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
In my first playthrough. The wild card.
Yeah. You can kind of be where you kind of follow the same path as Mr. House, but you make a few very distinctive different choices. That
essentially, but mostly killing Mr. House and uploading Yes Man, who is like this robot that can never say no to his boss. and he was part of a plan by the guy who at the beginning shot you.
Yeah.
Yes Man was a linchpin of Benny's plan to take over the Strip for himself. So, and then in addition to those main three factions, you have so many other factions. You've got just random little tribes of people that have like 15, 30 members total. You've got like the Powder Gangers, who are these ex-prisoners that have taken over a jail and stolen a bunch of explosives. You have
fiends, who are drug addicts that have taken over a vault and stolen a lot of drugs.
And they're just like stealing shit from people and murdering people.
Oh god, the Red Rock Canyon.
The Great Khans.
The Great Khans.
Yep. More drug addicts or drug
peddlers.
Drug peddlers, yeah. They make the drugs.
And gosh, what else? There's the Brotherhood of Steel.
I sided strong with the Brotherhood of Steel.
See, that's another big thing that is so good about the writing in this game, is that where you had played an older Fallout game that had you really see the positive sides of the NCR, I had only played Fallout 3. So in Fallout 3, it's very linear of the Brotherhood of Steel are the good guys.
Right.
So when I found them, that took place in DC, Fallout 3. So all the way out in Nevada, you have the Brotherhood of Steel. And so when you first play the game, at least when I did, I said, oh, finally, the Brotherhood of Steel, I will side with these guys. Yeah. And you learn that things are not so united or as pure for the Brotherhood of Steel in Nevada as they are in DC. It's not a clear good guy party out here.
The Brotherhood of Steel in Fallout 3 is a fucking betrayal of what the Brotherhood of Steel was in Fallout 2, I want to say, when they're kind of introduced. In Fallout 3, they're knights, right? They're like the Knights of the Round Table. Hooray, we're the good guys, we're going to do everything right, side with us, this is an easy choice, unless you want to be a bad guy, then side against us, oh, you naughty boy, you. That's Fallout 3. Whereas Fallout New Vegas, the Brotherhood are more like a monastic order, with all the good things and bad things that you would expect about that. They're static, right? They know what they want the world to look like. They are working slowly towards that goal. They're not making very many big moves, but they're just slowly spreading their ideas all over the place. The Brotherhood of Steel believes that technology is sacred and that it needs to be collected. So that makes them very smart about science and shit like that. It also makes them collect high-tech weaponry. Yeah. Right? Because they count guns as technology.
Oh, you know what
makes them a very dangerous
probably
faction.
Worth mentioning way back was a lot of, along with the super intelligent robots and nuclear-powered cars, lots of lasers. There's a lot of energy weapons kicking around in the.
When you get towards the end of a Fallout game, you're probably using a laser pistol or something
not
like a laser pistol. No, not you. What's your gun of choice?
Usually I'm a pistols guy. I mean, I've done, at least in New Vegas, I've done like every type of character, but usually my go-to character is small guns.
See, I used only melee weapons up until the point where the Brotherhood of Steel sent me to kill the Van Graffs, at which point I stole what is her name, Paula Van Graff's super cool like 3 split laser pistol,
the tri-beam laser,
and then I started pumping points into energy weapons, and the rest was history. Got myself some Brotherhood armor. I was just stomping around the wasteland.
That's one of the cool things in that I hope after this you find more reasons to play New Vegas, because for me, and I think a lot of people, when you first play a Fallout game, you kind of have a very well-rounded character because you think like, oh, I'm going to put some points in this and some points in this, and you know, after you used melee for a part of the game, you're like, oh, I actually found these energy weapons that I like a lot, so I'll put points into that. When you start the game and you're like, I'm going to be fucking energy weapons, like you can, it totally changes how you develop your character because you're anticipating using one type of weapon, or you're level 2 and you're anticipating the stats you'll need, so when you hit level 70 you can have this particular stat, which is the best stat for energy weapons or whatever, the best perk I should say. So how should we proceed from there? Those are kind of a probably confusing introduction to all the characters and groups in this wasteland.
Yeah, the major ones. Well, what do you like about Fallout New Vegas? Let's get into that. Defend yourself, Curtis.
So, I have never found a game, and because I had never played any of the Elder Scrolls games or anything like that, which are made by the same people, correct?
Kind of, not really. Do you want to hear the history of it real quick?
Real quick.
So, Black Isle Games made Fallout 1 and Fallout 2.
Okay.
Then Bethesda bought the rights to Fallout. And then there's like 10 years where there weren't any Fallout games, right?
Yep.
Bethesda buys the rights, makes Fallout 3. In the meantime, Black Isle Studios had shut down, but a lot of people from Black Isle went over to Obsidian. Okay. So Fallout 3 came out. A lot of people who liked the old Fallout games did not like it very much because it's a really different kind of thing. It's an Elder Scrolls game with guns in it. That's a really cliche, like no mutants allowed kind of thing to say, but it's also true about Fallout 3. So then when they heard that Obsidian were going to make kind of the like Zelda Majora's Mask of Fallout 3, everybody got really excited, and they were right to be excited because Fallout New Vegas, which is that Obsidian created game, picks up exactly what they were laying down in Fallout 1 and 2. End of story. So, long story short, it's a game made by Obsidian, published by Bethesda, I think.
Okay. I had never experienced a game that had a world as rich as that, in that there's no good side or bad side to choose. It's kind of a morally ambiguous choice of what's the least bad option. You really feel that your choice will affect the future of New Vegas, and by the time you feel that you can make that choice, you've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad on both sides, and you really kind of care about, for me anyway, about what happens. I think that it has a lot of missions, which is obviously nice. I like a game where I can play for a long time, but I really enjoy the variety of the terms that I use are action missions and diplomatic missions, where 50% of your missions are going to be go to this subway tunnel, which is kind of the Fallout equivalent of a dungeon. And
I mean, that's more Fallout 3, but
or go to this place, kill these people, come back. Those are your kind of your action-based missions. And then you'll have a significant amount of missions that you don't have to unholster your gun. You can talk your way and, solve problems and solve the whole crisis of the whole community by just talking to people. And it's still rewarding, too. Like, you can make a character that's insanely stupid, where you have to fight your way to every decision. But it's almost just as rewarding to have an insanely intelligent character that can talk his way out of every situation and, have the good ending, as it were.
Yeah, you have a lot of flexibility with how you build your character and how you play your character, which means that like your role-playing possibilities are through the roof.
Yeah.
Which, in turn, makes it so that you not only have a real attachment to the area that you're playing in, but you also have an attachment to the character that you are guiding through that area.
That is one thing that makes New Vegas feel so good, too, compared to... I mean, I'll say compared to Skyrim, but now that I know it's a little bit different, that doesn't really apply
it's
as much.
Slightly different. It's still kind of the same thing, but like different schools of thought.
So, you know, I started playing Skyrim again the other day, like I said, and I started playing as an Argonian, which probably doesn't make any sense if it's a lizard man. If you've never played an Elder Scrolls game.
Let's explore all the
Now we're
lore
gonna
of
talk
the Elder
about
Scrolls.
every race and all the lore from Elder Scrolls. No, but when they give you the ability to play as any race in Skyrim, but unless the game is written, in my opinion, for you to be a Nord.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can play any race you want, but there are unavoidable areas of like dissonance where you're like, this doesn't really make any sense because I'm a lizard man. I don't know why I'm shouting at dragons and, you know, like
it becomes farce really fast when you when you stray even a little bit away from the path that they've laid out for your character.
Yeah.
It becomes hilarious, which makes it arguably not a role-playing game.
Right. But on the opposite end of that, from my experience, every kind of character that you can create in New Vegas, and they're all humans, but any race or, you know, play type, whether you want to be an explosives guy or a gun guy or energy weapon guy or a melee guy, all of them feel you can roleplay any type of character and you can have a game that feels catered to that character.
How do you think they achieve that effect? Because that's one of the most impressive things about
Honestly,
New Vegas.
I have no idea. Like, I have seen as far as, like, character builds for, like, this is if you want your character, if you want to pretend to be Tony Stark in Fallout New Vegas, make your stats this and try to make decisions based on what you think Iron Man would do.
Right.
Like,
here's what I really like. One of the tricks that they use, and this is something that Bethesda-made games, Bethesda RPGs, always avoid. Bethesda RPGs want you at the beginning to make whatever character you want. It's a wide open, it's a blank slate. Yeah. Make a fucking lizard man. We don't care. But then as soon as you start trying to play the game as a lizard man, people are talking at you like you're a Nord, and it's like, oh, this just doesn't really track. Whereas with Fallout New Vegas, right up front, you get the information that, like, all right, I live in a dangerous place, and I have a dangerous job. I am a courier. Now, what kind of courier do I want to be? It gives you that little seed of a situation, and then you have to build a character who fits that situation. So by having that little bit of restraint placed on you, I think that you end up with a lot more room for actual creativity. Yeah. I think that's one of the great things they do up front, and I think that there are dozens of wonderful decisions throughout this game that support that initial seed of creativity.
And the best thing for me, I think one of the best things about it is when you wake up from your coma and realize you don't remember anything about yourself and you kind of have this blank slate, the doctor of Good Springs, he gives you a series of tests. He asks you some questions. You do a Rorschach test where you look at the ink blots and you answer these questions. And they do this with different ways in each Fallout game, but in this one, this is how they approach it. And they kind of say, you know, based on your answers, this is what it seems like you are. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know, if you've never played it before and you don't know what type of character you want to be, or you don't have one chosen, or you don't care, you can really answer these questions truthfully, and they'll give you the seed of a character they think you will enjoy. Mm-hmm. And then they can just say, like, yeah, but this is all just for fun anyway, so whatever you want to do. Like, they kind of make, you know, like, I think Doc even makes some jokes about, like, I don't really know why I do this, just for my own curiosity. And then you can change all your own stats if you want to.
Yeah, you can get hands-on with it if you want. Yeah.
And I just think that alone, like, not only is it this rich lore in a great story within that lore, they give you the ability to really play the game your own way and do whatever you want. I think that's probably every realm. It just hits A+ for me with, like, well, yeah, that's probably the perfect way to do that. Oh yeah, that's also probably the perfect way to do that. Like,
yeah.
And so I don't know if that kind of covers you, but what are some of the things that you also? Is there anything else that you really take away from this that you loved?
Well, let me see. What do I love about Fallout New Vegas? I feel like I'm going to play this game a lot more in the future. And we should mention we're only talking about the base game here.
Right. We won't be covering
we didn't
the
get
DLCs
to any of
today.
We didn't get to the DLC add-ons, anything like that. We'll be getting to those in a future episode. But yeah, I think I love the flexibility of how you can play your character. I love the missions, and I think that I want to keep exploring those a little more, and I want to talk about some of our favorite missions, some of the like quests that stuck out to us, or just moments, or like areas, or even factions that stuck out to us. Because holy shit, there was like a click in it, like I lost my total train of thought.
Sorry, that was me. I punched my...
Shut it down.
Yeah. Starting it over.
Starting it over. I want to talk about those things because there are so many specific great decisions in this. And let's start with the Strip. I think the Strip, the Vegas Strip, is such a great idea for an area. It's like it's the calm in the storm, but you don't start there. You don't even really start near there. You play the game for, I don't know, what would you say? Probably like 15 hours?
I was going to say a couple hours, depending on how anxious you are to get on with the main story. You can spend a lot of time before you actually get to the Strip.
Yeah, because where it starts you, at Good Springs, and these are not original ideas. This was from a video about Fallout New Vegas that I watched one time. You might have watched the same video even.
Yeah, the Shandification of Fallout.
I think it's that one. Yeah, you start in Good Springs, and the Vegas Strip is essentially to the northeast of you. But if you try to go directly to the Vegas Strip, you meet like the most powerful enemies in the game.
Yep.
So it kind of herds you south. And I guess the other thing about it is, and this is a big difference from Fallout 3. In Fallout 3, once you set your marker on something, you could literally walk straight there.
Yeah.
Never have to make a turn, never have to make any moves.
That was one of the most infuriating things about this game when I first got it.
About New Vegas?
Because 3... I actually didn't really like New Vegas that much when I first got it because it wasn't Fallout 3, which I really loved. But that's exactly right. I'll let you continue. But
yeah, in Fallout 3, if you're trying to get to a certain location, you just set your marker on it, you point your little compass towards that marker, and you can walk straight there. Fallout New Vegas is made of corridors, between valleys, between big, impassable hills. And there are also roads, like systems of roads that go through the wasteland in kind of a big circle. And if you go off the roads, especially early in the game, shit gets kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Like there are wild animals out there that will wreck you if you go off the roads. But if you stay on the roads, generally you're pretty safe.
Yeah.
Not completely safe. Like fiends will still come and get you and animals will still wander onto the roads. But it guides you. You know, I'm following the road south. Oh, what are these statues on top of the hill? I'm going to go up there and check out what that is. And then suddenly you meet the NCR, the New California Republic that we were talking about before. Suddenly you've got a hook in there. You're solving some little problems for them. You're meeting new characters. And you continue to go around. You go south, and then you go east, and then you go north, and then you're at the Strip. But you can't get into the Strip because of the credit check.
Yep.
You have to have 2,000 money units. Caps is what they use for money, bottle caps. You have to have 2,000 of them to get in. And the first time you visit the Strip, or the entrance to the Strip, you're probably not going to have 2,000 caps.
Yep.
But it looks awesome in there, right? You can like look over the fence and you see the big hotels and all that, and it makes you want to go to the Strip beyond even just wanting to move the main quest along. And the moment you finally get into the Strip is pretty profound because it's so different from everything else that you've seen up to that point.
Yep.
Like the lights are on.
Yeah.
There are people hanging out on the street who are not trying to kill you, right? Just random people, gamblers.
It really takes a shift at that point because, as we mentioned before, everything in the Fallout universe is kind of frozen in the 1950s as far as pop culture. So it's when you start New Vegas, it's not like that. It's very much an Old West.
Yes.
You're in a little town. And
you get rescued by a cowboy robot.
Yeah. And there are, you have to fight powder gangers, and it's very much like that. And then it's when you finally get into the strip of New Vegas, it takes a hard turn, and then it takes that 50s Las Vegas lounge singer, like there's just all the gambling and all that cool. And that's the first time when you get there, you're like, oh, people, this is like an oasis in this desert. People here to have fun and, you know, have sex with ghoul prostitutes, and gamble all their money away.
Yeah.
One thing this is going to have probably, I mean, obviously some spoilers throughout it.
I think we've already spoiled quite a bit.
Yeah. One thing I don't know if you knew this, you need that 2,000 caps to get into to New Vegas. If you do a few missions
for the Kings,
for Mick and Ralph, also you can get a counterfeit pass.
And this is another thing. I guess this is probably the real core of why we both love this game, because there are so many ways to do shit. Because I did a few missions for the Kings, who are like these Elvis impersonators that live in the outskirts of the Vegas Strip and in a place called Freeside, which is like a hellhole essentially.
Yeah.
But the Kings, they found this school of Elvis impersonation, and they all dress like Elvis and kind of talk like Elvis. And they turned me on to Mick and Ralph, and I could get the counterfeit passport from Mick and Ralph, so I didn't have to get the 2,000 caps either, now that I think of it.
The best thing about the Kings is that they don't know who Elvis is or what he did, so they kind of just have this impression of like, well, we found this building and this guy seemed like a really important guy, so we kind of try to live in his shadow.
We found a couple cassette tapes.
Yeah.
They've been worn out for a couple years now, but we learned a lot.
Yeah. So that is interesting. But I just, that's one thing that I love about the game, and that just goes to show for those different types of characters that you portray, even the goals of things you have to do, you could find a few different ways to do them that better suit. Like, if you're just a straight up criminal, you're not going to want to try to, like, well, I'll save my 2,000 caps.
Yeah.
And, you know, you find the skeezy way to get in.
How can I do this fast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where should I wish I had more of an outline of where to move from each point.
I mean, I think that covers what we really love about the game. Let's talk specific moments. What are your favorite specific moments?
Oh man, I think that when you first are starting the game and you realize that, you know, Benny, this guy, they do a really good job of, you know, Benny's a fucking prick.
You fucking hate Benny so much.
Benny.
Just from he says like one line to you before he shoots you in the like intro cinematic, and you just hate him. And his fucking stupid checkered suit.
And I mean, you kind of even think. You think in a way, there's no way that this little piece of shit is gonna kill me, because obviously I'm in the game. Like, this is I'm gonna escape. I'm gonna kill him. But you don't. You essentially they all think you're dead. They leave you in a shallow grave in the desert for Victor the cowboy robot to fucking find you. And the path to him. Fallout games have a really good way. At least 3 in New Vegas anyway.
I think what you're about to say applies to 1 and 2 as well.
Do it is they tell you this is going to be the story, and then relatively quickly into the game, you solve that conflict, and you are given a huge conflict that is completely overshadows what you thought the whole game was going to be about. Certain video games have a way of doing that are so impressive. Like, you know, like I mentioned, Fallout 3 is, I need to find my dad. You think the whole game is going to be you finding your dad. You find your dad in like 6 hours. And then you're like, your dad's like, hey, I left the vault for a reason. You need to help me. And this kind of does the same thing. You want Benny. You want your fucking package back. And then after he fucking eludes you for a while, he's a little rat bastard about it. When you finally find a way to pin him down and, you know, do what you will with him.
What did you do to Benny?
Me and Benny had some times. Not to mention I played that game like 12 times.
I've done many things to Benny. I think I forgave Benny one time.
A lot. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've never done that. But I know probably my favorite one was when I knew enough about the game to, like, I got my stealth up crazy high, and I had like a, you know, certain weapons are easier to smuggle than others, so if you can get your sneak skill high enough so you can go into casinos with like a switchblade and they won't, notice it on the pat down.
Mm-hmm.
I've killed him in the casino, which is so satisfying.
I did actually kill him in the casino.
Did you? That's pretty tough if your first run.
I think I pumped my stealth up really high, and
Yeah.
I was able to keep a few holdout weapons
and
just wrecked him.
If you don't do that, he strings you along for a while. If you encounter him in that casino and you say, like, hey man, what the fuck? He's like, hey, we're in a casino, don't make a scene. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's go talk upstairs. And if you're not careful, he just bails and leaves you upstairs, and then you run into him again at Caesar's Legion, and at that point you're given another choice. He's been captured and he's bound and gagged. You can just kill him, or you can say, put us in the arena and you can fight.
What?
You can fight Benny to death. So it's pretty cool how it, like, you're given a lot of options.
That's awesome.
For that. Yeah.
I can't wait to play this game again.
I can never let him live that long.
Yeah.
I fucking hate him. Like, he's written so well that he's such a piece of shit. You're just like, even though I know your death is imminent, I just can't let you live another day.
Yeah.
It's I'm pretty passionate about it.
Yeah.
Gosh, other favorite moments. They're just, I hate to be this guy that's like, oh, there are just so many. I can't think of any. But getting to the strip and seeing that the big change is huge. Getting you have like a few different options for like your secret base or whatever, and I get super into that stuff. So like you can find. Initially, the first base I ever got was one of the motel rooms in Novak, and that was really cool because you kind of just have this little motel room to store all your shit, and you can get like a room at the Lucky 38, which you have this like big like 6-room hotel suite that you can kind of make your your base of operations. Speaking of which, though, I guess I should mention one of my favorite parts about that game and most memorable is there's a lot of well-written companions in that game. A lot of the people you bring on your journey with you are, voice acted by famous people, and they have really well-written stories where you'll have to be with them a certain amount of time before they'll open up to you enough to solve this big problem in their life, this big conflict they have.
Who's your favorite companion?
So every time I play, I've had every companion. I've tried them all. Oh yeah.
I've had them all.
And there's there are two types of companions. There are human companions, and then like other, which is there's like a robot that floats around.
Yeah, I think you can get a Mr. Handy, right?
Yeah, Eddie.
Yeah, and you can get a dog,
a robot dog.
You can get a super mutant, Nightkin.
Yeah,
Lily.
And so personally, my favorites, I usually go with Boone from Novak and Rex. Those are my two.
Those were my two as well.
And I think those are the two most. You find them kind of early on, and they're relatable. And
I lost them though because this game, we should mention, is very buggy.
Yeah, I think actually though. Well, if you have a base, once you lose them, they just go back to the base.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
Usually what happens is when you leave an area, it forgets that they're on follow mode, and they'll be like stuck there.
Yeah.
But I think the two strongest ones are Arcade Gannon, who's like a scientist that uses laser pistols.
Okay.
Pretty Fallout thing.
Yeah.
And Eddie, the floating Mr. Handy.
Mm-hmm.
He gets some pretty hardcore upgrades in one of the DLCs that make him pretty much the best companion to have.
Huh. Where do you find Eddie?
Eddie is in the town with the Bison Motel.
Oh, okay.
Right. Nipton?
Yeah, Nipton.
I can't remember.
I barely spent any time in Nipton.
Yeah, he's like a junkie Mr. Handy, and if you have a repair skill high enough, you can bring him with you, and then you find out that he has some old audio logs of like a mission he was carrying out, and you can help him finish his missions. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking cool.
It's a really good game.
And then one of the things, it's one of my favorite side missions, is when you're using Rex as a companion, you you find out that he's dying. He has a
he's the kings that we were talking about before. He is the leader of the kings' dog.
Yep.
He has a degenerative brain disorder. The dog does.
Yes. And so they give you Rex with the purpose of like, can you help fix my dog? And you find out he has a degenerative brain disorder. And then also pretty Fallout, you are given a choice of like 3, like you're going to have to go kill a dog and steal its brain. We'll do a brain transplant.
You've got to find a new brain.
And there are 3 different dogs you can choose to kill and take their brain. And each brain will give him a different stat boost.
Yeah, so, and it changes his ending also.
Yeah.
Yeah, like mine, I went for the fiend dog, Violetta.
Yep.
Yeah, and at the very end, like it's a very classic Fallout thing because there are so many choices. The way they do the ending is it's like a slideshow where the words that are said over the slideshow change depending on what choices you made. And in this case, it says, like, super spoiler alert.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's going to be pretty heavy.
This is going to be very heavy.
This game's like 10 years old.
It's 10 years old. Go play it. It's fine. It says, like, Rex learned to deal with his violent tendencies from the fiend dog brain that he had.
The fiend brain does give it the highest attack bonus, though.
Yeah, that's why I picked it, Curtis. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You did some research.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not giving you enough credit. Okay, so...
What do we want to talk about next? What are some things that we don't like about this game?
Okay, so there are a few things that stick out that I don't like. And the main, I think it all stems, maybe not all of it, a lot of it stems from the fact that this game is just super buggy. There's a lot of problems that sometimes you didn't do anything wrong. They just fucking happened.
It had a really troubled development history also. I think they made this game in like 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
similar to Majora's Mask again.
One of the biggest problems, and I hate this part of the game, is you will be like you said, you kind of have to stick to the roads as you're starting this game. I can't remember the name of the town, but you arrive in this town that's basically in a valley of radiation poisoning, and you meet a non-feral ghoul, which might not make sense. You've never played Fallout.
There are ghouls. They're people who got exposed to radiation, but they didn't die. They mutated, but their skin all rotted off.
Yeah.
Some of them have gone feral. Some of them haven't, but they're discriminated against because they're really ugly.
And
their voices sound really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're all about 200. They're all over 200 years old. They lived when before the bombs dropped. So you find a non-feral ghoul who was a member of the NCR or something, and he says that a lot of his friends became feral ghouls, and he gives you the mission of killing all those ghouls to put them out of the misery, and then bringing their NCR dog tags back so he can have that memory of all of his servicemen. So cool enough mission on its own. But the way that Fallout handles this is as soon as you get into the outskirts of that town, that mission is triggered. And you will see the ghoul and he will approach you. And then it says, you need to find whatever it is, 10 or 12 feral ghouls, kill them, collect their dog tags, bring them back to me. In that town, it drops 12 feral ghouls that spawns them. And they have the dog tags, and then there's nothing that keeps them there. They just disperse.
Weird.
So if you don't drop everything you're working on and do that mission right then, there's a very, very strong chance that you will never find all those ghouls because they'll wander and get stuck somewhere, and then you can never find them. And not to mention that the aforementioned town is like an irradiated cesspool, and that your character might not even be ready to wander around in an irradiated cesspool yet. You need like to find a radiation suit.
You might have been exploring, and thinking like, all right, two more seconds, and then I'm going to turn around, and then this guy approaches you, they spawn, and you can't. You might not be able.
You don't know that aspect of the game. You just say, "Oh my god, I'm dying in here. I got to get out of here. I'll do this later," not knowing that you're always going to have an incomplete mission that you'll never be able to finish.
Oh man.
Oh, it's fucking infuriating.
That sucks. I didn't even get that mission.
Oh, yeah.
That's right by Cottonwood Cove, though, right? The place where you catch the ferry. I know there's an irradiated. I know there's an irradiated place with a bunch of like ghouls near it. Yeah. But that guy never ran up to me when I was exploring. I decided to get out of there pretty fast. I wasn't interested.
Other flaws. Not so much a flaw because I didn't notice it at the time, but weapon mods in that game are pretty boring and basic compared to what they did with them in Fallout 4, which is a huge... Like, that's one thing I will give Fallout 4 as a huge improvement, is weapon mods in that game. And in New Vegas, you'll be walking along and you'll see a caravan dude walking down the highway, and he's like, "Oh, I have a piece of paper that tells you how to make, a scope for your laser rifle," and you'll buy it for a lot of money, and then you now have laser, scopes on your laser rifles.
Yeah,
and that's all well, but in 4, it's kind of like, you have to find all the scrap materials and build it yourself, and I just think it's a lot cooler. And you can see the differences on the guns in New Vegas too, but it just looks like in Fallout 4 they really make it look like a cool, scrappy, put together duct tape gun.
Yeah, and part of that is just up to art direction, I think.
Yeah.
Like Fallout 4, I maybe not generally. I think Fallout New Vegas has really good art direction. But they just didn't have the time to do something like that, I don't think.
Yeah. You told me that there were a lot of ideas that they weren't time to implement in New Vegas, which, might be a flaw in your opinion, but that should just leads me to ask, what are your big flaws with New Vegas?
So for me, I think there is a fundamental flaw with New Vegas, which is that the story is amazing, but the way you actually get around in the world is not that engaging, I don't think. I think exploring is cool, but I think it's just done better in the older Fallout games. Because what I'm really there for is like the interactive story. It's the role-playing element. It's going and talking to characters. It's like getting into fights, but not having to do like a first-person shooter to deal with the fights. Because in Fallout 1 and 2, it's just turn-based strategy. You have to prepare for a fight based on what you know about the fight, and you do it, and it's fine. Fallout New Vegas, you kind of have to maneuver yourself and position yourself in real time sometimes, and I find that kind of boring sometimes. Maybe that's a flaw with me. I don't know. I'm bad at video games, but it would have been a lot easier for me to get into Fallout New Vegas had it been overhead, turn-based combat like the older Fallout games. And I think they would have been able to do even more with the story in that case. They would have been able to write longer speeches for the characters. They might have been able to get, like, maybe not more voice acting, but better voice acting out of some of them if they didn't have to also worry about, like, matching it up with a 3D character in the world, if it was just a top-down representation like the older Fallout games. I understand why they couldn't do that, because people were expecting a game like Fallout 3. But like you said, Fallout New Vegas is not really like Fallout 3 in any substantive way, other than it's a first-person perspective, or quote-unquote third-person. It's a first-person perspective game.
Nobody fucking plays it in third person.
Nobody plays it in third person. I only put it in third person when I want to look at my sweet Brotherhood of Steel power armor.
I was going to say, when you want to steady your pistol and then swing the camera around so you can look how cool you look with your new modified. You have 6 mods on your varmint rifle, and you're like, yeah, extended mags on a 22 rifle. Like,
I rock.
Not necessary.
Yep. But that would probably be my flaw, is that I think it's, in some ways, it's a missed opportunity. In some ways, it is a game that is so good that it's a shame that it's not better.
Yeah.
It's a shame that it's not perfect, because it could have been perfect. It could have been like it could have been the game that 20 years from now everyone is saying, you need to play this game. There is no excuse not to play this game. But as it is, it has that core, it has that seed of a really incredible story idea and a really incredible world to explore with a lot of great locations. But it's held back by being buggy and by, in some ways, just being really badly designed.
I think, games like, Skyrim has had like 3 releases now on different consoles. I think if any game ever needed an HD remake or, New Vegas 2, the game would benefit so much from that. Fix some of those bugs from I don't know anything about programming, so this might sound stupid, but if you could fix some of those fundamental bugs from the base level, not have to just repair what you've already started, or have it so your experience in New Vegas is a little more seamless. You don't have to load every 10 seconds, right. But you don't have
maybe you can fast travel to each individual casino instead of having to fast travel just to the Vegas gate. Although maybe that's a design decision that I don't understand.
I think because the Strip or New Vegas itself would be so much more impressive if you could enjoy it the way they had intended to, where you could literally walk down the Strip and kind of take it all in. As it is, you kind of encounter these steel doors that you have to open, so you never really get a full sense of the Strip. You get these segmented blocks of different parts of the Strip.
Right. And I think that's just because the engine that they were building it on was not designed to handle complex AI interactions, was maybe not meant to handle that much going on screen at one time. There is a mod that makes it a seamless Strip.
Really?
I haven't seen it. I haven't used it. I think you have to start a new game with it. That's how fundamentally it fucks with things inside of New Vegas. Is like, no, you can't load a save.
You're gonna have to give me like a crash course on how to install mods, because
it's hard and maybe not worth it.
Oh, okay.
I'm probably not gonna do that
because I
do it myself. I'll show you how to do it if you want.
90% of my New Vegas experience had been on my 360. And then last summer or something, I bought it on PC during the Steam summer sale. And so now I was like, well, that's one thing. Like, people have modded the fuck out of New Vegas. Like, there are whole new games that just use the engine, you know. There are ones that take place in Seattle and there's snow everywhere. And I was thinking about, this will be a new way for me to enjoy this if I learn how to install some mods on here. But I haven't yet.
It's really hard.
Yeah. And especially with me, where it's like it's probably insanely hard for a guy who's getting into PC gaming at 26 years old. Like, I didn't grow up learning how to install computer games the old way or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess that does give me kind of a leg up on that.
Yeah.
But okay, I think that's enough about what we didn't like. Let's do one more section of New Vegas discussion about what. So you have this massive political situation. What do you as a person, not as an individual character, but what do you as a person think the correct resolution is for that political situation that is faced in Fallout New Vegas? Because I think that is genuinely interesting to discuss this in the same way that it's interesting to discuss great literature.
I think that, so obviously this is going to be hugely...
This is going to be spoiler zone.
This
is going to be straight spoiler town.
So, the different endings that you can kind of achieve in the game, as you kind of mentioned earlier, were the NCR, the Legion, Mr. House, and then kind of Yes Man.
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe we can start by kind of plotting out what each one stands to achieve. So, the NCR is looking to get control of the Hoover Dam, which will allow them to push control further east and kind of take over the Southwest as that new American government.
Their ultimate goal is to grow to encompass the whole United States.
Yep.
They also want to control the Hoover Dam because they're using the power to power their cities farther west, I believe, right? They're routing that power back there, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that is accurate. And so the pros of that, as we mentioned before, is that in California, the New California Republic was a great faction that really did a lot of good, but as they get bigger and bigger with they don't have as much of a centralized government part of it, it's a lot more corruption, a lot more kind of Wild West, people doing whatever they want.
It's also run kind of like a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Like they call their leaders presidents, but one of the characters in Fallout New Vegas says like, yeah, they called them presidents, but the first president of the NCR ruled for 50 years. They're essentially kings, right? Because you can't go straight from tribal wasteland directly into direct democracy. Like that just does not work.
So, and then on the other side of that, you have the Legion, which pros, I guess, and this is what's like the hardest thing to say, is you kind of touched on it earlier. The Legion are the bad guys. They're the bad guys. But when you play when you play through the Legion, or even if you don't, you can kind of almost appreciate what they're doing.
Well, it's that thing that everyone always says about their villains that they write, and it's true in some cases, and that's how you know a great villain, is when you can really sort of understand where they're coming from. Like, you know why you disagree with them, maybe, but their actions are consistent with what they believe, and what they believe is mostly a coherent philosophy, right? The Legion believes in this particular type of government that is going to help people climb back up out of the ashes of civilization.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you have, so the third option there is Mr. House, who is also from before the Atomic War. He's like 200 something years old. Yep.
He saw the Atomic War coming, and he decided to build a protective dome over Vegas that protected a part of it.
And his kind of aspect is, this New Vegas is my home. I've been protecting this area for 200 years. The New California Republic is not from Las Vegas. They're from California. The Kaiser's Legion is not from Las Vegas. They're from the other side of the Colorado River. They are both intruding and trying to fight over territory that shouldn't go to either of them. And he has kind of taken it upon himself to make the Strip as great as it can be. And that's where it ends. If you're outside that credit check, he doesn't give a shit about you.
Right.
He wants the Strip to be as great as it was, in the 1940s.
Make the Strip great again.
Yes. And then you kind of have, you have Yes Man. He's kind of the fourth choice, which is the independent New Vegas.
Independent Vegas, yep.
And I guess I'll say, before I even kind of say, morally I side with Yes Man every time. Mm-hmm. And that he distributes everything as evenly as possible. After you win the battle for the Hoover Dam, he takes all of the electrical power and he just distributes it throughout the Mojave Wasteland. So you don't have any giant powerhouses like the Strip that can have the power to take the wasteland back where it used to be. But everybody's life is a little bit better. Everybody has some street lights and a little running water. And there are massive brownouts, because there's just not, it's spread out too much. But I think that's where I fall, in that none of these groups are pure enough to say this is the best choice. We should always, we need to have this be the answer above them all. I think with me, I like to give everybody that next step, and to kind of just, honestly, really, you kind of just postpone the next big chapter of the Mojave Wasteland, because rather than picking a side that gets to win, you really just kind of stave off those two forces that are pressing in on it, and you give the citizens of the Mojave Wasteland a little bit more of a footing into their home. That's kind of where I fall.
Okay, that's the easy answer. Let's say that we remove the option of becoming an autocrat yourself, because that's what happens in the Yes Man ending, because I just chose that ending.
Yep.
Because I thought it was it was the right one for my character at the time, and I wanted to see what happened and so on and so forth. But I do admit that I think it is the easiest one to choose, because you as a player don't have to deal really with the consequences of that choice. It's like when you're choosing that ending, or when I chose that ending, after you get rid of Caesar's Legion, the NCR busts in and is like, all right, cool, just hand over control of the dam to us, and we're going to move right in, because the NCR had spent the whole time thinking that I was on their side, because I wanted them to think that. And right at the end, I had to say, like, nah, actually, did you guys see all those... Did you guys walk through a bunch of, like, security bots out there? Did you guys see all those robots? Yeah, they're with me. And then the thing that he says is like, you fucking idiot. Like, do you really think you're going to be able to maintain roads, maintain peace? You're going to have to create a new form of government. You're going to have to take care of all the different tribes in this area. Do you really think you can do that all on your own? My answer was yes at the time. But if we remove that option, if we take what is probably the realistic situation, if you or I were in that situation, not a character, you or me, we're in that situation, I don't know about you, but I don't think I would have the confidence to make myself the ultimate leader of an independent Vegas. I feel like I would need to choose someone else to run it for me. And in that case, I think Caesar's Legion is out, right? I can't get behind Caesar's Legion. They're too violent. The shit they do is just too scary. And they literally are Nazis, right? It's a pretty direct, like, Nazi propaganda brought in a lot of, or fascism, let's say European fascism brought in a lot of Roman imagery, because it came from Italy, turns out. But yeah, I can't side with Caesar's Legion. So it's down to Mr. House or the NCR. And that's a really hard choice for me. Because on the one hand, the NCR, I think, does have probably, of those two, the NCR has the best chance of sustaining peace in the long run and of making the most people's lives best. But keeping them in the area is going to overextend them. It's going to be hard for them to maintain that, because the Brotherhood of Steel, which is like the NCR's mortal enemy, I think by the time of Fallout New Vegas, the NCR has actually pushed the Brotherhood of Steel mostly underground.
Yeah. And
the Brotherhood of Steel is like preparing for an uprising, so that's going to get scary. But the NCR can't maintain a position in the Mojave because there's a Brotherhood of Steel location there as well. But then you look at Mr. House. And the side of Mr. House that's like, yeah, we'll have the strip, we'll exclude people, but, only so that we can maintain peace on the strip. That's a cool side of Mr. House. There's also a side of Mr. House that's like, yeah, the NCR are fucking consumers. Like, that's the biggest thing the NCR has done for me. Mr. House likes the NCR to be in the region because they feed his casinos. There's a rail line that connects directly from what is it, McCraren Air Base, directly onto the strip. And NCR soldiers who spend a lot of time running away from their duties because nobody's watching over them because of how stretched thin everybody is, they spend a lot of time on the strip, in the casinos, in the whorehouses, gambling away their money and making a lot of money for Mr. House and kind of contributing to the farther destabilization of the region. So Mr. House is sucking in all this revenue from the NCR. He's also sucking the usefulness out of the NCR. Like, if Mr. House was not such a ruthless capitalist, the NCR might actually be doing better work in the region. They might be able to maintain a sense of discipline in the region that would make it easier for them to actually do what they want to do there, which is, they have a good goal. They want to bring power to people. They want to, not power like voting power, but I think they have, nominally they try to give people voting power, but they want to bring electricity to people who live in their state. I just don't know, man. That choice between Mr. House and the NCR is so tough and so complicated.
So, for one way that might help sway your opinion is that if you wanted to side with the NCR, not even you can actually in game, you can find a way to detonate the whole bunker with the Brotherhood of Steel inside of it.
Oh yeah, that's the end of the...
Oh, is it?
That actually... Mr. House tells you to do that at one point because he really doesn't want the Brotherhood in the region because he knows that they don't like him having Vegas with all this technology that he's using for his own purposes. So yeah, Mr. House tells you to destroy the NCR. That was actually when I turned against Mr. House. It's probably 2/3 of the game I thought I was going to side with Mr. House at the ultimate battle of the Hoover Dam, and then
that's kind of one of the best things about that is that almost every faction they'll get you quite a bit into it and committed to it, and then they're like, hey, by the way, and kind of really make you be like, all right, well, I guess there's no going back from here.
I can't do that. I can't do the thing you told me to do. It was funny because I went and I did the whole Brotherhood of Steel quest line. I got my sick power armor. And then I went back to see what Mr. House wanted me to do. And he was like, oh, you already took care of the Omertas? Oh, that's awesome. What about the White Glove Society? Did you deal with the White Glove Society? The cannibals? Yeah? Oh, sweet.
Easy.
Oh, one last thing. I need you to destroy the Brotherhood of Steel. And I'm standing there in my Brotherhood of Steel paladin power armor. No.
That's tough. So, part of the appeal to Mr. House for me is that there's this promise of returning the area to the greatness that it used to be. Not just in this bed of sin and entertainment, but also having a real, usable amount of electricity that can help gain progress that we have not had for hundreds of years.
Right, develop new technology. That's Mr. House's plan. That's right. I had forgotten about that, but he tells you about that plan, which is that he has an itemized list of technologies that he wants to bring back online, and the way he's going to be able to do that is by maintaining the security of the strip, bringing people there to work on it, and use the large excess amount of electricity to work on those projects. That's very true.
So I think if I couldn't overall, and I think you're right, Yes Man is probably the easiest choice to make because that choice to me is essentially choosing the people of the Mojave Wasteland over any faction, and you kind of just postpone. You're just kind of allowing a new faction to rise up in a few years and try to take over again.
You're creating a power vacuum. Is what you're doing.
But
you're doing what the United States did in the Middle East in the early 2000s. But there's going to be fucking Fallout New Vegas Mojave ISIS in 2300. There we go.
There you go.
There's my Fallout New Vegas fanfiction. Obsidian, I'm right here.
Get at
me. Or contact Curtis on Instagram.
Right.
And then he'll get at me.
Speaking of that, just kind of reminded me. I don't even know if it came out yet, but I really want to play Far Cry 5 because
they're on a 5th one already. What the fuck?
Yeah, it actually takes. It was the thing came out so long ago that I don't even remember exactly. But it basically takes place in a futuristic America where Nazis or something took over, and
there's Wolfenstein. There's a new Wolfenstein game based on that too. Oh right, Far Cry 5 has and it's rural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game does look pretty cool.
It's
weird that we're going to get that Wolfenstein game and that Far Cry game are probably going to come out pretty close to each other. It's going to be like that one time in around 2011 when a bunch of games about raising children all came out at once.
Hopefully we
get
the
datification of the games, and now we're going to get the Nazification of games.
Hopefully we get it before Civil War II.
Yeah. Hopefully they all come out on the same day.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think honestly for me, I think I would have to choose Mr. House if I couldn't choose Yes Man. I just think that the NCR it just like you keep saying, it's just spread too thin. That no good can come from it just being that out of control. I think at that point it would probably... I think people, if they had succeeded and they had that power of being the biggest faction in that group, they would just say, we're not going to let somebody in California boss us around. They've never been here. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
And then you just have two California Republic factions that are now at war with each other.
That's true. They would just split like the Roman Empire.
Really no good endings for the Mojave Wasteland.
Yeah. Though, now that you mentioned it, I probably go with Mr. House as well. I would have stuck with Mr. House. I would not have gone with the Yes Man wildcard ending if only Mr. House had not asked me to destroy the Brotherhood bunker. And because I couldn't make my character do that right after having like helped the Brotherhood so much, and I kind of sympathize with the Brotherhood in a weird way. They're not perfect, but monastic life has always appealed to me a little bit. So the Brotherhood, I just have a soft spot for the Brotherhood. But looking at it more objectively, it is worth. Am I about to say this? It would be worth killing all those Brotherhood members to let Mr. House carry out his... Would it, though? Would it be worth killing all those people? I don't know.
Well, the thing is...
Because the Brotherhood are not innocent.
No.
They are violent, in fact.
And I think that one of the strongest points of living in the Mojave is that there's a lot of problems that you have to solve yourself. Murder, not necessarily that big of a deal.
That's true. I actually, right before I came, I had gotten the ending that I had gotten, and one of the things that it said was, the powder gangers actually kept on harassing, making life real hard on the western side of the desert.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did after that was I jumped back in and I went right over to that jail and I murdered all of them.
That's so awesome.
I went right up to fucking, what's his name, Eddie or whatever, in the chair.
Yep.
I talked to him to see if there was some way to get them to stop doing what they were doing. And when it became clear that they were just going to keep being assholes, I went into the bathroom so that they couldn't, to kind of hide while I started killing them. And then I just killed all of them. Yeah. So I'm not real popular among the powder gangers right now.
I think that for good or for worse, Mr. House has been working on this plan for 200 years. It has been in works when America was still America.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe his plan is no longer relevant or a good plan, but at least with Mr. House, from your experience in the game, he does not bullshit you. He tells you very plainly what you need to do.
That's true.
Because this is what we need to do. And I hope that based on that, I can have good faith in him keeping his word. That it does suck. It's so funny because I feel like in real life, I would never be the type of person to favor a few over many. But in the surrounding aspect of this game, I think that it's hard for me. I don't really like saying it. I almost think that in the context of this game, I could get behind using that technology for the furtherment of mankind at the cost of shutting out the majority outside of the walls of the Strip.
And you're right that that's a sign of a really good story, is that it makes you say a thing that you feel really uncomfortable saying. It makes you hold an opinion. It presents you with a situation that it's heightened, it's melodramatic at times, but it's not unrealistic. It's consistent with how people act in stories. It makes you look at that story and say, man, this situation sure would be easily solvable if I compromised my morals.
Yeah.
If I compromise parts of myself that I think are pretty core to who I am and what I believe, it would make this work really well. And then it makes you consider, actually, why do I believe those things? And
and you can even playing certain games that have karma-based systems or choices. As you mentioned in Fallout 3, it's kind of like you're actively choosing to be the bad guy, and it's like, oh, you're so naughty.
Yeah, the choice in Fallout 3, the first choice that they give you is do you want to destroy a town or not destroy a town? It's like, wow, don't have to think about that one very long.
And it's hard to get into that mindset of, like, for me anyway, I don't like playing bad characters.
Me either.
It's hard for me to, like, well, I guess we'll sell these kids into slavery. Sorry, I just need that achievement for being a bad guy. Like,
I'm only doing it for the Chivos.
Actually, my current playthrough on Skyrim is one of those. It's the first one where I've joined the Dark Brotherhood. It's hard for me to be like, all right, well, let's kill these people, no questions asked. Good thing I got that perk where I can get 15 times damage if I stab somebody in the back with a dagger. Like, I'm so sorry. Dragging him into the corner of the room. Like, I didn't mean to do it. Yeah, it's really hard for me to get into that. But once you do make that choice, be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to be in the Legion this time. Need those Chivos, as you so eloquently put it. You start to see shit. You're like, I don't really agree with this, but you're a pretty good leader, Caesar.
I understand the appeal. That's the thing. He is a really good leader, in a way, to the people who are willing to join. To everybody else, he just puts them into slavery, calls them degenerates.
One of the best parts about as part of the cons as if you really need cons for a group that crucifies people and slaves
along roadsides for everyone to see.
There's a very good argument made for, like, they're doing pretty good with what they have, but as soon as Caesar's dead,
that's true.
They're not going to be able to peacefully continue.
Who else is going to rise up to who's the next person in that line?
And oh man, so you might not. Do you care if I give you spoilers?
No, go ahead.
If you play through Caesar's Legion, you realize very kind of quickly into it that Caesar has a brain tumor and he is dying. Dude. He's not even like someday when Caesar dies, what's going to happen?
It's like
he's
months.
Dying. Yeah. So it kind of adds a certain depth to it of, like, really questioning your choices and stuff.
That's really fucking cool.
Yep. One of the classic, hilarious Fallout missions. It's called Et Tumor Brute. Yeah.
Man.
So,
all right, dude. Does that wrap it up? Any final thoughts on Fallout New Vegas?
I highly recommend that you guys play this game. Obviously, that probably goes without saying.
Yeah, like if you're into video games. If you're not into video games, would you recommend it?
That can be hard because even as a guy who's into video games, I fully understand that I say get to be our age, we're like 27-ish.
Yeah.
When you have possibly kids or a full-time job, or you're part of the Young Democrats club, or you have a podcast, it's hard to, like, commit 200 hours to a game file. You can't really get home from work and then play New Vegas for like a half hour before your wife gets home. It's a great college game if you have, vacations and stuff like that to, sink 50 hours into a game over the course of 2 weeks or something.
Yeah. Play a game like it's a part-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I other than recommending it, it has one of the greatest stories that I've ever played in a game. It's so well written. Easily one of the best stories in any video game. You can play it over and over again and kind of you might not be able to, like, be like me and play it like 1,200 times and have like 5,000 hours or whatever, but
your hours keeps inflating.
Yeah, I have no idea how many hours I've actually put into it. I did the math once a long time ago, but I don't remember where I was going with that.
It's not a very accessible game.
It can be challenging to get into, yeah. So if you can get into it, it's very rewarding. But if you don't have the time to commit to it, it's kind of challenging.
I would say that I recommend Fallout New Vegas if you're into video games. If you're not into video games, I recommend Fallout 1.
Yeah.
If you're not into video games, but like these things that we've been talking about, like these choices that you make and these really complex factions and these ideas that are like both very big and very personal at the same time, that really get to the core of what you believe and what you value in the world. If that sounds interesting to you, play Fallout 1. And if you like Fallout 1, play Fallout 2. I haven't played it, but I've heard it's really good. I would
actually disagree with you on that point.
Yeah?
I would argue that if you are not super into video games, but you think it's interesting, you should try Fallout 3. Because the story is very linear. And I think part of the problem... I don't want to call it a problem, because it's not necessarily a problem. But one of the things about Fallout 1 that's challenging is it still has those remnants of the old PC games where you start it up and they're like, well, here you go, good luck. Games now, you can't play a game without an hour-long tutorial teaching you everything. Fallout 1, I don't really remember on Fallout 2, but Fallout 1, it's very like, well, you got 100 days to get the water working again. Good luck. Bye.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's a great opening.
We haven't opened this gate in 200 years, and we're letting you out, so we're going to close it. You can't come back.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Okay, so I disagree with that. I would say I think that a first-person perspective game is a big barrier to entry. So Fallout 3 would kind of be out for me. Also, I think it's a terrible game. And it has all that interesting story stuff. Fallout 3 just has none of it. Like, no interesting choices whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the worst endings to a video game of all time, by the way. We could do a whole hate episode about Fallout 3 for me.
I like Fallout 3. I
like parts of Fallout 3.
I could never play it again. I will say that because, well, I've gotten every achievement in it. Boo, Curt.
So why would you ever play
Loser.
it again? You know, you've collected all the rewards. Why would you ever touch it again?
The other half of it is that it's so basic compared to Fallout New Vegas, which it's so similar to, but just like a skeletal version of it. That it's like, why would I ever choose to play 3 when I can play New Vegas?
That's how I feel about Fallout 3 compared to every other Fallout game, other than Fallout 4, which I haven't played, and which
Fallout
looks
1 and
kind
2,
of bad.
I've never played very much, but it's so different from New Vegas that even if it were, which I'm not saying it is, a skeletal version of what New Vegas is, it's so different in every aspect of how you play it that you could find things to enjoy that you couldn't have in New Vegas, which is not the case with 3. Everything that you enjoy about Fallout 3 is in New Vegas, but better.
Yeah, okay, that's a good way to put it.
And Fallout 4 is kind of farts.
Fallout 4 is like Fallout 3 plus some of the ideas from New Vegas, but like misunderstood through a game of telephone. Yeah. It's like, oh, they like factions.
Yeah.
We've got factions in Skyrim. No, not like New Vegas, you don't. Yeah. Not well thought out factions that actually interact with each other in interesting ways.
Fallout 4 is one of the biggest disappointments I've ever, from how much I like a franchise and hype to enjoyment of the game, one of the biggest letdowns I've ever had.
You were looking at it as a follow-up to New Vegas. Yeah, which is
I didn't know
the developer stuff,
all the developer aspects of it, and I just thought, what the fuck happened?
What did you guys do?
The only other time that's really happened is like Resident Evil 5. Like,
that's a bad one.
That's probably the biggest. Like,
yeah.
My other favorite video game of all time to one of the worst video games that I've subjected myself to finishing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Resident Evil 5 is one of the worst, but it's certainly one of the most mediocre games that I've ever played. Like, there's just nothing really special about it.
Yeah.
And coming from a game like Resident Evil 4 that has so much special about it, surprise, secret, like, this is our second Resident Evil 4 episode, we're going to be here for another hour.
We're getting into it.
Yeah.
Hit that pause button, go pee.
Resident Evil 4 is almost all special things.
Yeah.
It's almost all, like, perfect choices.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 5 is almost all like
you know, one thing I have recently, having played Resident Evil 4 again, I have determined that I can pick one flaw with that game, and that even because I know where to go, like I can play that game without even, I can read a book and play that game at the same time. It is very linear. Even to the point where a lot of the maps are like just a straight line where you're walking from here to
slightly
here.
Curved straight lines.
Yeah. But that being said, I mean, especially at the time that it came out, but
There's nothing wrong with a linear game.
No.
I like, especially like an action game, and it's non-linear it's just non-linear enough. Like when you're in the castle, sometimes you can pick between two doors, right?
Yeah.
Am I making that up?
No, you can't.
I might be making that up, but and they do things to make it feel non-linear. Like there are little side paths that you can explore that don't really lead anywhere, but there's some like extra shit you can pick up there.
You can choose to fight this boss instead of this boss. Like you're going to be fighting a boss, but it can either be another El Gigante or two ladies that scream at you and have chainsaws in your face.
I know what I'm going to pick.
Yeah, me too. I kill one, then I go back and do the other one.
Gotta get that treasure.
No one's going to survive, and I need that treasure.
Those pesitas.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Fallout, though.
So the only other thing I'm going to say about New Vegas, and I'm not going to spoil too much because I still want you to be able to enjoy it.
We've already spoiled all the endings.
I'm talking for you.
Oh, okay. All right.
So you haven't played the DLCs yet.
I have not. I'm very excited to, though.
The DLCs are amazing. Some of them are better than others. Probably, I would say 2 of them are fucking incredible. Mm-hmm. And then, is there 4 or 5?
There are 4 story DLCs.
Okay, so 2 of them are incredible. 2 of them... One of them is, in my opinion, like okay, and then one is like not awesome, but it's okay, but less okay than the third option. But anyway, when New Vegas ends, it ends. It's one of those games where
it's not like, and then you keep roaming the wasteland.
Right.
What you choose at the end of the game fundamentally changes the world.
So yeah, that's exactly it. So when you get that DLC, you don't just load up your game and do the DLC. You load the last save you made in the game, and then you go do the DLC, which ultimately just adds to your knowledge about the choice you make when you...
Oh, that's cool.
When you finally finish the battle at Hoover Dam.
Oh, that's good.
So...
Damn.
We will get into DLCs at a later...
sometime
down the road.
I want to take my time with these, so like I'll let you know when I'm done with them, so we can talk about them.
I will tell you that. Actually, you know what's weird is I wrote like a blog about Dead Money right after college, and I think you edited it for me.
Did I?
I think I emailed it to you.
Yeah, I did I do stuff like that sometimes.
Yeah, and that was kind of. Now, our relationship in college and our relationship now, it's kind of weird that I had you do that, but it's like, yeah, so that is one of my favorite gaming experiences
Dead Money
I've ever had. Dead Money. And then the other ones are less good, but cool. So we'll get into that another time. I don't want to spoil any of that. But
yeah, I'm really excited to get into that stuff.
We'll get into that next time. Further down the road, not next time. Next time, what are we doing next time?
Speaking of next time, we are going to talk about the films of Kevin Smith. Yep. 2 of them, specifically, his first 2 films, Clerks and Mallrats.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had talked about doing kind of the... I had kind of been thinking in my head of like the first 10 episodes of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts was kind of like a season of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. So we were kind of... Last time before we recorded, we were like talking about episode ideas and stuff, and I think we've kind of found that thing that we have movies, we have video games, we have music, and I think we had kind of like, maybe every once in a while we should do the Tarantino thing where we do like multi-part episodes.
A full retrospective.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to be as comprehensive as we can.
For reasons that we don't need to get into here, we noticed some of the big differences between Kevin Smith movies and Quentin Tarantino movies, and decided that doing 4 or 5 Kevin Smith episodes in a row just too much. I don't want to I don't want to watch and think about Kevin Smith movies for 3 months.
It kind of makes my heart like sink a little bit to even think about doing that.
Now that we've got more because we did the Tarantino one really early on.
We did.
Now that we've got so many episodes under our belt, I really like jumping around. I don't like to have to dedicate 2 months to one idea. So next time, like you said, we'll be doing our Kevin Smith double feature, Clerks and Mallrats. Then later down the line, alongside the someday Fallout New Vegas DLC episode.
Yeah. It won't be that long. It'll be a couple months down the line.
We'll start. We'll pick a couple more movies, and maybe we'll skip around a little bit. Maybe we won't.
Well, I think it would be cool to, because Tarantino we just did chronological.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's as much to be gained from studying Kevin Smith's filmography chronologically. I think that you can gain more maybe by pairing movies that seem odd together. Like, what if we did Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back plus Jersey Girl?
Yeah.
Though that is chronological.
Yeah, I was
so
just
I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I think those are smashed right up next to each other.
The best thing about that coincidentally worked out for us with Tarantino was that even going in order, his movies are broken up into those themes.
Yeah, he has phases of his career.
And Kevin Smith does not do that. He'll go back to the Viewisk universe, and then he'll do a Jersey Girl or a kind of a cop-out where he has nothing to do with any of the other movies he's done. Or in his later career, hey, I had this idea on a podcast, and then someone gave me $20 million to do it. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think the problem with Kevin Smith, and we're going to get into this, but the problem with studying Kevin Smith movies like we studied Quentin Tarantino movies is that Kevin Smith doesn't really have like an identifiable directorial style.
Right.
He has kind of a writing style that has developed over his career, but even that's kind of slapshod. I want to confirm that I do enjoy Kevin Smith movies.
I know this is kind of different from our Tarantino thing, but I'm curious. What's your favorite and least favorite Kevin Smith movie?
My favorite's probably Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, because it's wacky in a way that I really like, and in a way that weirdly, even though Kevin Smith clearly wants to be wacky in so many of his movies, he doesn't let himself be wacky that unself-consciously very often. I think there were probably things going on set. I think that it just arrived at a really good moment in film like history for Kevin Smith to make that movie. So yeah, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is probably my favorite. And my least favorite, well, I haven't seen most of his recent ones.
Yeah, that's kind of the same boat that I'm in.
But I bet it's Tusk.
Yeah. I'm going to say with 100% certainty that it is a one I have not seen, Tusk. So for me, I have a hard time saying. Just for the sake of being definite, Clerks 2 is probably my favorite. It's probably, God damn it. Clerks 2 is my favorite Kevin Smith film.
Yeah.
And
let's be decisive for once.
Let's be decisive here.
So
That's
much
my
waffling.
all-time favorite.
Clerks 2 is my favorite movie.
Yeah. And then I have not seen Yoga Hosers or Tusk, which I have to admit I have not seen because I have zero drive to see.
We should do all of the latter-day Kevin Smith movies all in one episode when we get to that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a safe idea.
We need to pick a week when we're feeling fucking awesome about everything.
But
or we need to pick a week where we're both feeling down in the dumps and ready to rip on some bullshit.
I will say it's not Jersey Girl.
Yeah.
My least favorite. As a guy who was like totally obsessed with Kevin Smith, and he was like one of my favorite directors when I got into like movies as a hobby, I saw Red State and I fucking hated it.
I remember that because we disagree about this.
Yeah.
I think Red State is tolerable and at times pretty brilliant.
You know, I haven't seen it since I was like 20, so that was like 7 years ago. I feel like I've gotten a little smarter since then. I've changed a little since then.
Both certainly gotten older since then.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is a truth. So yeah, we'll worry about that later. Next time we're going to talk about Clerks and Mallrats. That's about it. We only went 2 hours. That's not too bad.
Only 2 hours.
My favorite game ever.
Yeah.
And I still feel like we didn't talk about enough.
See, and I think we're going to get to a lot of stuff in the DLC because while I'm playing the DLC, I'm also going to explore the world more. And
yeah, are you going to play them in order?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who would play something out of order? I don't know why anyone would do that.
Let's see. So yeah, if you like Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, you can subscribe to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes or stream it from Buzzsprout. I literally can never say that without messing it up. I always stutter or I say BuzzFeed.
Buzzsprout feed.
Stream it from Buzzsprout.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K. You can listen to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That is our newest project. That Ben is, like you're in charge of that. You've taken that by the horns. That is on the channel Ben and Curt. There.
Yep.
Yeah. So however you like to enjoy it, we're trying to make it so you can enjoy it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to make you go out of your way.
Hell no.
And I think that is about it, right?
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
All right. We will be back next time, and I'm gonna send out that copy of Rain Dogs. Maybe we'll do another contest at some point.
Wook.
Yep.
Thanks, Wook.
Shout out to Wook.
Shout out to Wook, our buddy Wook.
Peace.
Bye.